Next Wave Gaming. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in for this week of the Next Wave Gaming SPL review, reviewing Week 5 of the SPL. With me, I have Shadow Venom and Scott737. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
I'm doing great.
Good, good, good. For those of you who don't know, I'm Wolfpack89. I am one of the site devs and one of the admins for Next Wave Gaming. I do a lot of social media and a lot of the data and number crunching for Next Wave Gaming.
Hey, I'm Shadow Venom. I also do a lot of number crunching, although I mainly focus on the EU side of things. I analyze the EU side and I do the EU article.
I'm Scotch737. I do video editing and watch the games just to keep up to date on esports.
Awesome. Well, with nothing holding us back, why don't Shadow Venom? Why don't you take us into the picks and bans for this week?
Okay, the picks and bans, I firstly believe they were a bit thrown off with the Arachne and Odin being allowed into the SPL. All the teams were kind of thrown up in the air going, whoa, these guys are allowed now, we don't know who's good with them and whatnot. So we saw Arachne get banned 6 times, but the 4 opportunities she wasn't banned, she was never picked up. So it seems those bans may have been for nothing. Odin, however, was banned only 2 times and was picked 6 times. So there was 2 opportunities where he was completely ignored, but for the most part he was picked up when open.
Yeah, I know one of those picks was Zindern, and he played very poorly first game, and the second game he did very well.
Yeah, learning curve.
Yeah, there's that learning curve, absolutely. The one pick that I wanted to focus in on, if we could, was the Vulcan jungle, because wow.
Yeah, Zeus is trying to. It's almost like he's trying to make a name for himself for being a reputable niche jungler.
Mm-hmm.
He pretty much brought Thanatos to the scene again for a while ago now. It's now what you call meta.
At the EU 50K, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now he's done Giannis jungle. Now he's done Vulcan jungle. Quickly, like he's going through a checklist, and he's just going, "Yep, done Giannis, done Vulcan. What's next?" So we could see something quirky next. I think Isis jungle is going to be next on the board.
I played against an Isis jungle, actually.
We used to do a 3-man roam. Isis, Anubis, and something else.
Wow, got that burst mage going on.
That's it.
Yeah, the Vulcan jungle was certainly... It threw everyone off. That must have been fun to cast.
Probably, yeah. So the other one that's interesting to me so far is the Rama. There were no bans on Rama this week.
Yeah, I think people don't see the threat in ADC anymore in the SPL. Like, as we spoke about last week, the ADCs are tending to be a lot safer in their role compared to others. And so the prioritization in picks and bans isn't actually towards them. So Osram was actually picked up 10 times, which means every single game he was picked wasn't really banned because they just didn't seem a threat compared to the other lanes or the people or the gods.
I think one thing that goes along with that is you're starting to see in the EU Anhur picked up a lot more, and it's because he's one of the few ADCs that can really bully Rama out, and the early game is so key to the
seems to be the key. Getting an early lead provides an easier life through the mid and late game.
Yep. When Rama rolls towards you, you just impale, and you're like, no, you're back where you started. Like, bye.
Yeah.
You know, like, you want to roll towards me? No. Not only do I say no, I hit the entire wave and say no.
Yeah.
You know, you just dash through a wave without doing any damage to it. Okay, no.
It's just that early pin. That early pin can really put a lot of pressure on Rama and keep him from being aggressive towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good at boxing early on.
One of the other... let's talk about supports for a second, though. Because Geb is the only one that's been in, like, all the games. Everybody else... I mean, the next closest god to being a support is Odin, having been, picked 6 times. But the next true Guardian is Bacchus at 6, and then the other top tier that everybody talks about is Athena, who, was only played in 4 games, one ban, 3 picks.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't get Geb, you just don't support.
I felt like Odin this week in the EU was like a tryout.
Yeah.
It was.
I don't think a lot of people had a lot of practice with him, and there were a few games it did not work well at all.
Right.
That's why I think it was a bit of a curveball, because everyone's like, "Oh, Odin. Let's just pick Odin because there's Odin now." It's what it seemed like for the majority of the time.
Yeah,
but...
no Zeus picks with him, which was strange.
Just wait, Zeros will do a Zeus jungle, and then we'll all be sad.
Oh, God.
Zeros, I'm looking at you. I want to see that Zeus jungle.
That's it.
It seems Geb is the focal point of supports, and then if they can't get Geb, they branch off to their own supports. Like some supports prefer Athena, some supports prefer Bacchus, which seems to be for the most part surprisingly now. You have, I'm not sure if we saw Chuck support, but Chuck's been picked 5 times, so he may have been in support on one occasion or two.
Trying to think. I don't think we saw a shock support. Not that I can remember.
But we've seen
I missed a
Ymir
few games.
table. So the other Guardians were there, but they were less picked, so they might total up to the same usage as Geb, sort of thing. You know, because Ymir was banned once, picked twice. There's 3 mentionings of him. There's 8 mentionings of Odin, as we said, 6 mentionings of Bacchus, 4 mentionings of Athena. So, you know, there were Guardians used, except there was a variety of them which weren't so strong as Geb.
Right. You just got like Geb, and then, okay, we'll have these other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I think Bacchus is making a resurgence, though.
I think he is a little bit, yeah.
And in the EU scene, when you see a Ymir ban, it's against Frosty X. So.
Right.
I can't believe that.
Any other big things to talk about in picks and bans? I mean, Mercury obviously getting the 5 bans, 5 picks. Rama, you know, and Jean-Qui being played a lot. Jonas.
Anybody? I think Nemesis made a break for it this week, really.
Yeah,
like,
1 ban,
Nemesis,
8 picks.
Yeah. She's always been around the 5-6 pick and ban margin, but for whatever reason, like I can't recall a reason why, but she's been highly picked, you know, like only being left out in 1 game in the entire week.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's just been a huge liking towards Nemesis for one reason or another, or maybe it's coincidental.
Let's go on to ADCs. So, Funball absolutely owned this week, coming out with a #1 weekly score of 1742. Just behind him, Shaggy Shank performed well for the 2nd week in a row, landing at 1617. Then we have Smek landing at 1568, Real ZX landing at 1488, Mox falling to 1297, and Young Bay landing at 1053. I mean, just a reversal. It's been Mox and Real Z every week, and now it's Funball and Shaggy.
Yeah, Funball really stepped it up this week, just like Shaggy did last week. And it's good to see that Shaggy's being consistent as well.
Yeah, and he's just got this nice upward tip, which is awesome to see. I mean, his player damage was just phenomenal, or his structure damage was just phenomenal this week at 118 structure damage per minute, second behind Funballer, who was at 230 structure damage per minute, which is insane. But the next closest is at 94. So, I mean, he's in triple digits with Funball alone, and nobody else is crossing that triple-digit mark this week. Young Bay falling down there at 36.4, too. I mean, we're not seeing a very high score from Young Bay at all, having an 1165 overall. But Funballer and Shaggy Shank really, really dominating it this week.
That's right. I think Funballer picked up his game through a confidence boost at the LAN, you know? He was very dominant at the TSM Invitational LAN on the bye week of the SPL, and he's now came back into the SPL going, "Hey, I can do this. I can bully these guys around."
I've
you
played
know?
ADC before.
Yeah, I can play with you guys now. I can beat you up, and that's what he's been doing all week. You know, he's flexing these muscles that he's now found.
And I just want to point out, it was Mox and Real ZX the entire time for the first 3 weeks of play, and we had the bye week for week 4. But now that we've come back in week 5, overall, Funball and Mox are tied for first at 1567.
Wow.
Yeah, Mox and Meals aren't in the spotlight anymore.
This Cause Mortality had kind of a rough, what was it, week 3, so.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. They did,
and I think that's the same case as far as Young Bay's low score is concerned. They've been they've had a pretty rough past week and a half, pretty much.
Yeah. But I mean, Real ZX fell off hard at 16-17, 14-75, 10-21, and now you look at his week 4 score, and he comes back to 14-88. So it's great to see him kind of climb back up again. He was 16-16 down in the thousands, and now he's come back up, it's awesome to see him performing.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome to see Snek performing again too. I love to watch Snek perform, and he's doing such a great job of it this week.
I miss his Artemis.
Everybody misses Artemis.
Which one's Artemis? You mean Tusky that has the pet Artemis, right?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I think Reels is picking up his game because, to begin with, he was top, and it was like, hey, I'm doing really well, I just need to keep this up. And whilst he was keeping it up across the weeks, everyone else is bringing their game up, which is why his game was going down. Because as everyone else was bringing theirs up, they were beating Reels in lane. And so he kind of went, okay, time to step it up again, and that's what he's doing.
There was a crap ton of player damage that came out this week, too. I mean, for Smek, for Real ZX, for Funball, and for Shaggy Shank, they were all almost 600 per minute.
That's a lot.
I mean, that's just crazy. 600 player damage per minute. I mean, Funball or Shaggy Shank just took off, being at 661 player damage per minute. Everybody else landing exactly at 616, actually, with some decimal point variations. But the player damage this week was incredibly high from the ADCs, where we typically see that damage coming out, or the good, really, really good player damage coming out from the mids or the solos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it was our video, but it seems like all the ADCs got a wake-up call. They have to say, hey, you're in the SPL, can't, do some work. And they're putting it out now. Shaggy Shank started a bit earlier than the rest, but I think they're all playing not less safe, but more aggressive now. They're more willing to go in and fight.
Well, we still got a really tight race in the EU, and I think after that break, everybody had a chance to sit back and look at it and say, all right, we need to push the advantage when we have it, and just take advantage when we have it, basically. And I think that's where the more aggressive plays coming out.
Yep. Real quick before we wrap up the ADCs, your top ADCs overall are Moex at 1567, tied with Funballer at 1567. Shaggy Shank not far behind at 1412. Not far behind him at all is Real ZX at 1408. Actually, I'm sorry, we have a double tie. I was wrong. First place is tied between Funballer and Moex. Second place is tied between Shaggy Shank and Smek, both at 1412. And then Real ZX just barely there in that third place or fifth place spot, depending on how you want to look at it, at 1408, and Youngbay down there at 1165. Those are your overall scores for the week.
And right, going into support this week, the top people were Half Devil, surprisingly, at 1978, followed by Zimstar's support at 1926, followed by Princess Tomatoes at 1925, with D. Frezzy following with 1676 after a gap. Trickstank coming after that was 1645, Badger following up 1589, and lastly Emily2 with 1407.
Yeah, we can kind of discard Zimstar's game because he only played one game this week as a support, and so that can kind of end up skewing the metric. So, I mean, the first place very, very clearly goes to Half Devil. Second place going to Princess Tomatoes, who has been having a very, very rough SPL.
Yeah, I think everyone on Coast has been performing in our stats, but they can't pluck those wins.
But I mean, Princess Tomatoes was 1351, 1340, 1519, and this week he's 1926. I mean, or 1925. I'm sorry, just shooting up phenomenally well. He performed extremely well this week for Coast. I mean, he took 103,000 damage, dying only 2.5 times per game, and mitigated another 104,000 damage across 4 games in 126 minutes. He took 824 damage per minute, mitigated 973 damage per minute, and just to round it all off, did 7 structure damage per minute. Sorry, he took 824 and mitigated 826. I apologize, I used the wrong number there. But just incredible numbers this week coming out from Princess Tomatoes.
Yeah, he seems to have found that fine line between dying and not dying, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, with those numbers, you'd think, whoa, that person must have, fed, basically, but not the case.
Stop picking Ares, please.
No. Bring
I
back
love
the
playing
Ares.
Ares. I love playing Ares.
It's just not working in the current meta. I mean, it's definitely a niche pick of support, so.
Looking at farm... Yeah, looking at farm, though, Princess Tomatoes leading the way... Trix Tank leading the way at 441. And Princess Tomatoes behind him at 418, and barely behind him is D Frezzy at 417. And then we fall off pretty heavily after Emily 2, 403, then 380, 362 for Badger and Half Devil. So Half Devil not getting very good farm overall, but having a good week this week.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Badger will stop trying to take those back harpies after a day.
I love support you take back harpies. Love support you.
Got the back harpies, it's all worth.
Yeah.
In terms of Half, everyone having low farm, I think that comes more from he doesn't regard himself as any value. He's kind of like, yeah, I'm the support, but I'm going to make sure my team's all good, I
mean, this week he had great farm. The numbers I gave out before were the overall. This week he led in farm with 526.
I see, right. And so maybe this week he's gone, you know what? Maybe I do actually need to get some farm for myself, to actually be a bit more better, basically.
It doesn't hurt that he has Zalia.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, Zalia has his own passive, which is 10% chance to win games automatically, but I think Half Devil decided to not rely on that passive so much and farm up better this week.
Well, looking at your overall scores, you're looking at Trix Tank still holding that first place spot. You've got Half Devil rising to second place in just 3 weeks of gameplay at 1683. D Frezzy at 1640. Then you've got Princess Tomatoes coming up at 1617 overall. Then you've got Badger at 1478. And Emilitu also at 1478. So they're tied in that last place spot. So we'll say they're both tied for fifth place. So it's definitely going back and forth. All right, let's go into the mid score where Lobster dominated this week, landing himself a 1654 weekly score. Just behind him is Shadow Nightmare at 1543, and then we have Captain Twig at 1454, Vexez at 1424, Carino at 1413, and Optics at 1286. So a very, very tight race this week in EU mid laners. Did anything stand out to you guys this week in EU mid to make it such a tight race?
For me, for the games that I was able to listen to, it seemed to me, and watch, but it seemed to me that the mid laners were not getting themselves caught out of position as much, and there's more of a shift towards that mid harpy fight, and everybody basically did their job this week.
Yeah, they really did. Let's see. I mean, getting 2.6, 5.2. Lobster dominates in average kills per game at 5.25. He has 21 kills overall over 4 games. So he's getting a lot of kills, and he only died 13 times. So he's obviously dying far fewer times than he's getting killed. Then he's killing more than he's dying, is what I'm trying to say.
And a lot of those kills in this week's games were from like Phoenix sieges, I guess you could say, defending or fighting to take a Phoenix, and the mages really stand out in those fights.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, absolutely. Though Captain Twig brought himself back this week too, which is nice to see. I mean, he fell down to 1136 last week, and he's back up where he was performing before, in the 1400s. Which, unless I'm mistaken, it's his third highest score. But it brings him back up because he was on a downward slope, and now he's jumped back up another 300 points, which is, I'm happy to see that because he led for the first 2 weeks of the SPL. He was number 1, and then he fell off really hard.
It's playing more traditionally now. You don't see Chuck mid anymore. We saw a Giannis today, and we saw a Giannis Isis the other day. So he's playing more in the comfortable, solid mids that he knows because he has 17 diamond rank cards or something. So he's definitely playing solid with what he knows.
Who is this? You said Optics or Captain?
Captain Twig.
He has 17 Diamond Gods, something like that?
He has something like that. He has a huge array of mid laners alone.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, let's look at just the overall numbers. I mean, if you look at player damage, overall, Carino is doing the most as a total, but Optics is doing more per minute. He's doing 617 player damage per minute, while Carino is doing 597.2. I mean, you know, there's almost a 20-point difference there. Do you think part of the problem C9 is having is they're not able to capitalize on the Optics deaths? I mean, he has the fewest number of deaths of any mid laner in the entirety of the SPL. He has 32 deaths over 13 games.
C9's getting wiped in team fights before he can get there.
Yeah, I think he's holding them up slightly, I think. You can rely on Optics to hold and probably win his lane for the most part. You know, it's always, look at Optics, he's at it again, he's doing this, he's doing that. And maybe C9 aren't capitalizing on it, but maybe that's the reason they're holding themselves up.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. And I said he's got the lowest number of deaths. He's also tied for lowest number of kills total, but he's tied for lowest number of kills total with Captain Twig. Lobster leading the way with 58 kills.
Right.
So
Lobster's very aggressive in the mid lane. You'll find he's happy to get 2 kills and then die, which is why you find he has high number of kills, and his deaths are substantial to that amount.
Yeah, he's 58 kills overall, 45 deaths overall, 4.46 average, 3.46 average.
He's happy to die as long as he kills.
When he smells blood, he goes in, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's like a shark.
Don't bleed around Lobster. So overall, let's look at the scores for overall. Overall, leading your mid laners it's going to be a very, very close race. Lobster takes the #1 position overall, taking that first place spot. Shadow at 15.55. Shadow Nightmare coming in second at 14.53. Then you've got Captain Twig dropping down to 3rd place at 14.02. Actually, he might be coming up to 3rd place. I think he was in 4th last week. I'm not positive, but he's back up in the 1400s overall. He was in the 1300s last week. Then you got Carino at 13.30. Optics at 13.01, and you got Fexes trailing at 12.86. So it's still relatively close, even from bottom to top. You know, you have less than 200 points separating everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. I'm pretty excited to watch it all unfold. All right, now that we've covered mid, why don't we head on into the solo? Shadow, take us away.
Alright, so starting with the weekly scores, we have Zalia topping it out with 17.24, followed by Maniac with 16.47, with Gaiman at 15.58, with Variety following up with 15.32, so dropping into 1400s with 14.98, and dropping all the way down with NQ at 14.05.
I mean, the story here really is it's Zalia. I mean, the guy is going crazy. Do you see how many kills and how many deaths he had this week? Do you see his KDR?
It's ridiculous.
23
Zalia
kills, 3 deaths. He averaged 7 kills per game with 1 death per game, on average. That is insane.
You can't
King
ban
of Solo. Can we crown him now?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't ban him.
It's insane.
You can't pick against him.
Yeah. You can't ban and you can't pick against Alias, so what are the rest of the guys supposed to do? I don't understand. It's almost unfair. Is that not in the rules somewhere? You know, like
whatever side of the map he's
6.4.
on, it is his.
Yeah, you're not allowed to win against Alien. It's in the rules somewhere.
I like what you said earlier about his passive. He has a 10% chance to win games from the start.
Just automatically.
I mean, just his player damage too. I can imagine it's
unfathomable.
He has this week 654 player damage per minute. Over 78 minutes and 3 games, he did 51,000 player damage. Farmed 583 GPM and did 6,000 damage to structures.
Wow.
It's doing
And
work.
also did 18k healing on top of that.
I mean, he done everything.
He did everything this week.
Apart from die.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at player damage, if you want to take player damage and you go down to the next highest player damage, it's Sayo at 529. He's over 100 player damage per minute. Higher
Almost.
than the next solo laner. That is insane.
Yep.
Last week, we harped Cuvo Fred. This week, we harped Xayah. Xayah.
I don't know what anybody's going to do against exposed secrets right now.
I mean, well, what happened in the beginning was Mortality was running with it, right? Mortality was extremely strong. We've seen them fall off. I don't know if it's because of, just general fatigue. You play at a really high level for a really long time. You're gonna fall off eventually. You're gonna start making mistakes. You get arrogant. I don't know if any of those are true, but we've seen them fall off for some reason, and that's led to the rise of exposed secrets.
On the back of Xayah.
On the back of Xayah, yeah. Whether he plays Shock, whether he plays Raw.
Bakasura, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what he plays. He does too much damage, and he doesn't die. You can't kill the guy. I mean, the game that Mortality played against Coast, it ended in 17 minutes, and Xayah didn't die once, and he got 4 kills out of it. Ended up farming 596 in that game. Frostyak had to farm, but he did the most player damage. He had 100,000 or 10,842 player damage in 17 minutes.
Yeah, that game was.
He wants to do work straight away instead of looking at a certain specific part of the game. He's like, okay, let's do work now. Come on, let's go.
I think the story here is Xayah, but the other story to talk about is Maniac. I mean, SK has been having some problems, but this is the third SK player that we've talked about in 4 roles that has performed. Fourth SK player we've talked about in 4 roles that we've talked about who has done incredibly well this week and landed top 3 for the week and raised their overall score into that top 3, top 4 range. So SK coming back. I mean, they're doing incredibly well.
Well, didn't Maniac used to play mostly healer gods, like Aphrodite and stuff?
That's partly coincidental on the basis that before he was a competitive Conquest player, he played Joust. He was in the Joust scene quite heavily. So he found himself picking the healer gods in sustained fights. So Aphrodite, he's really good at. Yep. Chang'e, he's really good at. I think he plays Ra for the conquest factor. That wasn't one of his better gods, but he does seem to have found himself.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of Chuck with heavy hammer.
Yeah, it's nice to see him widen out the god pool, though. That's what I was.
Yeah, he likes to bully.
Yeah,
that's what he likes to do.
One other thing I'd like to point out real quick is that SK won one of their 3 games this week, and their players are still coming out on top. That means they are performing well. They are overall performing very well, which is something that is promising for them coming up. I mean, I think that might help them get out of that bottom 2 spot if they can overtake Cloud9 and keep them out of that wild card. No, because nobody wants to go to that wild card. All right, well, let's transition over to the jungle, where I think the story is going to be around Zindern, and not necessarily because he had the highest player score, but because the question now arises, does Zindern take over for Ninja Bobat? I mean, Ninja Bobat, his scores, what were his scores? Where are they? Ninja Bobat, 1175, 1102. He jumped up last week to 1592, but after 2 weeks of underperforming, Zindern comes out in the first week and lands himself a weekly 1465, taking 3rd place, but, I mean, Ninja Bobat had been sitting at 6th place overall.
Zindern's done a really good job of coming in.
I think Zindern's trying to prove himself again, considering he used to be on another team, and then I can't remember if he got benched or kicked out, but basically he was out of the pro team. I think it was Agilitas.
And that sounds familiar to me too.
Yeah, and so he kind of found himself just doing nothing. So opportunity arises. I think Zindern's like, hey, come on, keep me. Come on, keep me. Come on, keep me.
So, in the jungle, for the week, your top players are Frostyak at 1670. And then you will go to Cuvofret at 1551. Then you have Zindern at 1465, iRaffer at 1385, and Hyrock at 1336. Overall, your top players, it's a very, very tight race, with Cubo Fred still maintaining that first place spot at 1572. Frostiak coming in at 1484 in second. Zindern taking 1465 at third place, although he's only played 1 week. Keep that in mind. And then you have iRaffer at 1406 and Hyrock falling down at 1279. Frostiak's farm this week alone, landing him that 1670 score, the top score this week, was 546. The person who was closest to him was 464, and that was Cubo Fred.
It's one thing Frostiak's found is like, I think Exposed Secrets overall, hence why Frostiak came on top this week, is like, hey, I got muscles, let's flex. And so he's picking that Ymir, going, hey, my best god, I'm going to do real good right now.
Yeah.
And he just walks around like, whoosh, you're ice cold now, you're frozen, you're dead. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's really interesting watching Exposed Secrets and some of the top players this week. Whichever gods they're on, they're really using that passive, that god's certain passive, to its fullest advantage. It's like the game today. You got the extra damage from the frostbite. You can clear just fine without Hog. Let's save that active slot for something else, something better, something that's going to help us secure a kill or secure an objective.
Yeah.
Right.
Cubo Fred came out on top this week, though, with 531 player damage per minute. So he's still dealing up the damage. He's still performing very well, getting 23 kills, 16 deaths. Sorry, 20, I take that back. Yeah, 23 kills, 16 deaths, averaging 5.75 kills and 4 deaths per game across 4 games on 151 minutes. So Cubo Fred still playing very, very well after the praise we gave him last week. But that kind of sums it up for the jungle if we look at the overall scores. You want to give us the overall scores, Shadow? Oh,
yeah,
I did give the overall scores, with Cubo Fred still leading at 1572.
Yes, you mentioned Cubo Fred still on top with the 1572, but following that is Frostiak now with 1484, sorry. Then you have Zindern playing only 1 week, mentioning again 1465, with iRaffer falling down to 4th with 1406, followed by Hyrock with 1279.
Yeah, I think we're going to see these scores continue to fluctuate because it's a very, very close race. I mean, 1572 top, 1482 seconds, 1465 third, 1406 fourth. I mean, they're all really, really close together. I mean, granted, iRaffer's down there a little bit at 1406. He's 150 points below Cubo Fred. But he's not far from either Frostiak or Zindern. So we'll see if Zindern stays the player that Coast decides to use, or if it moves on from there.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our predictions for next week. Leading us off, on the first day of October, this Wednesday, we have Mortality v SK. Shadow, what do you think?
I think it's going to be Mortality, given that they slumped a little. Probably going to pick it back up again, beating SK, who've been performing consistently but not picking up their wins.
Scotch?
I go with Mortality as well.
Yeah. I think Mortality actually is going to have to take this one. SK just needs to pick it back up, although they have a shot. They've been performing fairly well, but I think Mortality is going to come out on top on that game. All right, TSM versus Cloud9. The old rivalry.
Yeah, I think because of the old rivalry sort of thing, it's going to be a close match. But I think TSM are going to take it over, especially with their given performance now.
I'm going to go with TSM on this one as well, just because of their late game.
I have to give it to TSM also. I mean, they can't follow up on the optics damage. Youngbei has been having problems performing. I think TSM takes it. They've been performing well ever since that first week. All right, going on to Thursday, we have Exposed Secrets v Mortality. It's the play-in rivalry. What do you think, Shadow?
Sorry, say that again. Who versus who?
It's Exposed Secrets versus Mortality.
Exposed Secrets versus Mortality. Wow. Exposed Secrets been flexing their muscles. Mortality needs to pick it back up. I think Exposed Secrets, are going to win it.
I have to agree with you. I think Xayah is going to carry them to the victory with that passive of his.
Oh,
exactly.
Was y'all talking about Xayah?
Yeah.
Or expose? Oh, yeah, exposed secrets.
Yeah.
Okay, so a three-way go for exposed secrets. Mortality not getting any love in this one. SK Gaming and Team Coast.
SK Gaming to pick this one up. They'll take it.
Yeah, I think.
Got the SK fanboy hoping.
No. I've been through this. No favoritism here at Expo Gaming.
I'm gonna go with SK on this one just because I feel like they are kind of like EU's snipe in the way that they played the past week. So I'm gonna go with SK on this one.
I'm gonna go with Coast. I think Coast needs the win more than SK does. I think Shaggy Shank is going to perform, can continue to perform. I mean, we talked about Coast players in several of the role analysis today. I think they're going to continue to perform, and they're going to come out on top on. Now we have Coast and Mortality. Scotch?
Mortality, just hands down. Sorry, Coast. No hate.
Shadow?
I think I pretty much a similar situation. Mortality are going to just roll over Coast, in all honesty.
I think they're probably going to overtake SK. They're going to have a rough matchup against Exposed. They're going to come off of that shaken and lose to Coast. Whether they win or lose, they're going to come off of that shaken and lose to Coast. I think Coast is gonna take the momentum from their SK game and beat Mortality. Cloud9 versus Exposed Secrets. Shadow?
I think Exposed Secrets are going to take it, given that C9 don't seem to be performing well against Exposed.
Xayah?
Xayah. I agree. Xayah. Alright, TSM versus SK. I got to give this one to TSM. They've been performing very well. SK is going to struggle against them, although we could see a surprise so long as we don't see another Vulcan jungle.
We're going to see ISIS jungle instead, and they're going to win. That's what I'm saying. SK Gaming going to bring it.
Okay. Scotch?
Odin Zeus jungle? Maybe? But yeah, you know what? I'm going to give this one to SK.
Really?
I have no idea why, but why
Just
not?
a gut feeling?
Why not, right?
Okay. Mortality and Cloud9.
Mortality. It seems like I'm an anti-C9 person. I'm not. I just don't feel like they can perform that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mortality on this one. They're going to try to secure that top spot.
I think I got to agree. Yeah, they're going to try to take that top spot back from Exposed Secrets and TSM. They need all the wins they can get. I don't think they're going to find them against Exposed Secrets, so it has to be against.
Yeah.
Against.
C9.
C9. Thank you. For whatever reason, my brain just shut off. All right. Last two games: Team Coast versus Team Solo Mid.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say Coast. I'm on the Coast train this week. I'm saying Coast. They're going to take. They're going to take 2-game momentum and win against TSM also.
Wow.
Didn't they beat TSM this week?
I think they did.
I think they did because they got a really good pick and ban phase. I think they won it.
I think they did get a win over TSM this week, but I think I'm calling, just like Sam over in our NA thing said Snipe was going to have a sweep. I say Coast is going to have a sweep.
I'm going with TSM on this one.
Okay.
I'm going with Coast on this one.
All right. Well, we have our last matchup: Exposed Secrets versus SK Gaming, and I am hands down going with Exposed Secrets because Xayah.
Really?
I might have said Xayah.
I think so. Yeah. Exposed Secrets. It's just they're just on fire, man. I don't think there's nobody stopping that train this week.
Yeah.
SK gonna do it. SK gonna stop that train. I'm calling it.
Non-fanboy coming in again. But that wraps up our pick spans, player analysis, and our predictions for everyone at Next Wave Gaming. We want to say thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you all watching and giving us your time. Make sure you give us a follow over at Next Wave Gaming on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you visit the website, nextwavegaming.com. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will catch you guys later.